You're listening to Two Girls, One Crossword.
So my family dog is like a 15-year-old miniature wiener dog, and she's been through it. Okay, she's can't hear, she can barely see, she had a tumor on her tail, she's been attacked by a Doberman, or
Oh my God.
German Shepherd back in the day. Anyways, she's rickety, but she is still strutting her stuff.
She's kicking it.
Yes, and I just want to, before I get into the story, Peanut is alive and well, so don't be scared. But the other day, my mom was walking her on, she goes on like 2 walks a day, and Peanut was like running on the sidewalk. Then all of a sudden, she stopped in her tracks, dropped dead. Boom. On the floor, eyes open, tongue hanging out, body stiff as a board. And my mom was like freaking out and was like trying to get her to wake up. And then she just decided that she was going to wake up and be fine. And she walked the rest of the way home and was totally fine and has been fine since.
What? She's just practicing her acting.
I don't know. Maybe it was like a heart attack or something, but my thing is she like decided, she's like, okay, I've had enough. It's been 15 long years. I'm done. And then she was like, actually, I still want to eat again. But
she's like, what's that smell?
Trash.
Must
Is that a squished worm on the sidewalk I haven't gotten yet? So anyways, traumatic for my mom, but kind of a funny story. And she does have a vet appointment to, see what's going on. But she literally
poor mother.
Tongue out of her mouth, just like that, like running, stopped in her tracks and fell on her side.
You can't make this shit up.
No.
Oh my God. Peanut brings the drama.
She does.
Oh my
God. It was like, I mean, she's really been pushed.
I would be like screaming, crying, sobbing, throwing up, puking on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And then Peanut just popped back up. I'd be like, you're done. You're officially done.
My mom was traumatized, but then she was like, but now she's fine. Like what? Then we were kind of laughing about it because it's just so ridiculous.
Your dog.
I think like she's had enough of my niece and nephew, harassing her. Not, of course, like they try and keep them apart and everything, but
there's only so much.
But then she was like, but they do drop food sometimes, so I'm not done yet.
Yeah, pros and cons. Okay, I'll stick it out. I'll huff it out a little bit longer.
So she basically resurrected.
Peanut has seen the other side.
Yeah. She's so much calmer now. She
can
nothing.
See. Wow. I love a good story like that.
Yeah.
Dog coming back from the dead. A stressed woman on the sidewalk.
I know. And of course, she was like freaking out, and there was a neighbor close by who was like, oh my God, like, what do we do? And Mom's like, I don't know. And then Peanut just gets up.
I'm sorry. Could you imagine? I'm sorry. That's hilarious.
I know. No, it is funny. I mean, I hope that she wasn't in pain. She didn't seem like she was in pain afterward, and she's been behaving normally ever since. So anyways, that's how we're going to start off this episode of Two Girls, One Crossword.
Wow.
I'm Grace Topinka.
I'm Chelsea Rowan. This is your favorite weekly Podword Crosscast, where we bring you the funniest topical stories from our last week. And
I feel like we almost never start with that, but this was too good.
No, I feel like, what do we usually are like, so it's snowing in Chicago today, and I watched Twilight again.
Why does that sound exactly like my voice? That's what I sound like.
I know.
Are you imitating me?
Yeah, I've been practicing, actually. I was gonna save it. I'm gonna see her tomorrow. I was gonna save it until then, but I thought I'd sneak it in now.
I could picture you being good at impressions.
It's a great thing to picture.
If you could do like a good Kermit the Frog impression, I would be like, yeah, that.
The only impression
right.
I can do is your local deranged British person. And I don't do that very well. I also really like doing like Long Island or New Jersey.
You could do a good Jersey one.
I mean, I was born and raised there, so it's kind of like sometimes I slip into it by accident. But like the whole Long Island, like I'm walking here, it's one of my favorites. My favorites. If there's like someone on TikTok that even has a wisp of that kind of accent, I'm like immediately liking the video just so I can go back and listen to it again.
Yeah, I saw one that was like, do me a favor. Don't do me any favors.
Not until I have my morning coffee. Whatever he says.
You've seen that one? Amazing.
I love him. He's the one who's like, I forget what he was like. Joe. Anyway, no, I can't. Okay. It's deleted from my memory.
What was that?
Sorry, I have a phone and it sometimes makes noises because I forget to turn off the sound.
No one's ever texted me before, so I'm not familiar
Woof.
with that alert.
Mm-hmm.
Should we start our thing?
Let's
our podcast?
do it. I think it's time to do the poll. The Poll-a-Palooza.
Yes. Poll-a-Palooza, based on last week's episode, where I talked about spas.
Ooh.
We asked our Twitter followers, where can we find you? The potential answers to choose from were hot tub, dry sauna, the steam room, or the ice room.
Ooh.
And if you chose ice room, there's something wrong with you. But no one did. That came in last place. 0%. Thank you. And in first place was the hot tub, 56%. Listeners after our own heart. Mm-hmm. And second place was the steam room at 33%. And then the sauna at 11%. I feel like a lot of people are mixing up. I mean, I like the steam room better than the sauna. But a sauna's nice too if you don't want all the humidity.
Right. I think that's the difference. People like the one is kind of damp and the other is kind of dry. I would go damp over dry, I think. But I'm also like worried about getting like nosebleeds or like feeling like I'm in the desert. I don't want to feel like I'm in the desert. I don't know. Like, you know, like when SpongeBob is in Sandy's house and he's like drying out.
Needs water.
Like, yeah. I mean, I like saunas and I like steam rooms. What can I say? I like it all.
You're going into
too.
a steam room and glasses.
As you know, I have since gotten contacts, and one of the activities that I am excited to use them for is a spa.
Yeah, because anytime we go to King Spa, it's like Chelsea can't see anything. Her glasses are just steamed up the whole time. You need those little windshield wipers.
I know. I can't take them off because I'm literally like truly blind without them.
Well, you're not.
Sorry, I'm not like 100% non-visual, but I am extremely, extremely blurry. Like everything is a blur.
Yeah, I'm the same way, but
no definitions,
no contacts.
No lines, just shadows and colors in these eyes. Anyway, hey,
that's Poll-a-Palooza for you.
we're moving on. Hits and shits, I think, is next.
Yes, I didn't do that many crosswords this week because I'm in the process of looking for a new apartment to move into. And all my spare time is spent looking at apartments online, but then also stressing. So that's been taking a lot of my time.
You obviously don't have your priorities straight.
What? Because I did couple, but not as many as I normally did.
What I'm saying is your priorities, it should be this goddamn podcast and then everything else. It's clearly...
I showed up today, didn't I?
You showed up.
I showed up with a topic. Okay.
She showed up. All right. Well, why don't I start then? Since you don't have that many, I think I have more probably than you.
Yeah, you probably do.
Not to like brag or anything, but I obviously care more. I'm just kidding. It's actually a struggle sometimes to do crosswords, especially at home. Like it's really difficult to like, not that I don't want to do them, but at work when we were doing them, it was like our break time. And I like looked forward to it because that's when we were having our break and this thing that we could do. Now I'm like at home. Break time is like laying on the couch and like taking my glasses off and like napping or like doing my laundry or something, you know?
Yeah. And that's frowned upon in the office.
It is. So yeah. Anyway, let me start. I'm going to start with the Friday, March 4th New York Times by David Distenfeld. First is 6 across, and I want to know what you think about this answer. Genre for Jersey Shore and The Real World. What would you have said?
Reality TV.
They had docu-soap in, which I guess isn't wrong.
I've never heard that before.
I've never heard that before. I think, for me, it just falls under reality TV.
Well, anyway. I feel like it wouldn't be reality TV if they had Real World, you know? Because real in the question and the answer.
True. I should have known. Anyway, then we have 17 across. Cold brew alternative. The answer is iced latte. And let me tell you, I love me a good drink. I'm on like the iced coffee like train 100%. I buy iced coffee just so I could shake the ice in my iced coffee. Iced latte.
That's half the fun.
Cold brew. Exactly. I just wanted to flag that for anybody who cares about my coffee intake. It is iced 70% of the time. And then I liked 35 across, needed help. And the answer was essential worker.
Nice.
I thought it was just like a cool way to clue essential worker. It was also tricky, like needed help, like was in distress was something I was like thinking of, but the answer is essential worker. And then I liked this one, 39 across, like Trump's presidency. And the answer was 1 term. Yeah, suck it. It should have been 0 term, but hey, what can you do? What can you do? Do you want me to keep going?
Sorry, it's just like the freaking elevator is going off at this exact moment. When I look for a new building or a new apartment, hopefully I won't be near an elevator.
Ooh.
No, I can go. Well, did you do the Wednesday New York Times by Peter Gordon? It had kind of a theme that
I thought I did. Maybe I didn't. Tell me.
So the themes were kind of strange. It was hard for me to, like, it was one of those things where they were all kind of similar, but not exactly similar. So it kind of felt like a stretch, but basically all of the answers had an apostrophe in them. And if you took the apostrophe out, it was still a saying. So for example, 26 across, kid at a college bar who seems to me as a bouncer too young to allow in. And so the answer is student ID card. But if you took out the apostrophe, it's student ID card, which is also a phrase, I guess. And so 43 across, Easter item that the woman is going to decorate. Egg shell paint or eggshell paint, which is also like, is that a phrase? More like eggshell white.
It's just like a thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This one I really liked, and I feel like this was probably the first one they thought of to make this theme, and then just went with it. 59 across, what the couple dressed in lupine costumes said. Werewolves or werewolves.
Nice. That is
and
cute.
And then this one, okay, 16 across. You and I should eat that. Let's have it? Like, let us have it or let's have it. I feel like those aren't like different.
Lettuce?
Enough. Like, let us have it and then just like let's without an apostrophe. Have it.
Oh, okay.
I feel like it's not a different enough of a phrase.
Yeah.
Between the two. Anyways, so the theme was weird and took me forever to figure out what the heck was going on. But I do have some answers that I liked from there.
Okay.
So 37 down, in quotes, tell me if you recognize me from just my voice and the feel of my hands over your eyes. And the answer was guess who?
Oh, cute.
Like, that's what guess who is saying, but it's also like, I hate when people do that. That's an immediate ick.
Oh, it's a huge, like, red flag for me.
Yeah. It's like, you can't just touch my eyes. Especially not now. Not in this economy.
No, not in this economy.
41 down, cool in old slang. And the answer was fat, P-H-A-T.
Nice.
And
yeah,
I
unfortunately, that is old now.
Yeah, I liked they said old slang, because sometimes we, like, complain that they say something as slang, and it's, like,
really in the
dated.
50s.
Yeah. And then I just thought this one was cute. 8 down, little Nabisco crackers was Ritz Bits.
Cute.
It was just a fun.
I feel like I saw like mint Oreo the other day, and I was like, oh, that's a fun way to have Oreo in the puzzle without it just being Oreo.
Mm-hmm. Although I hate mint Oreos. I think they taste like toothpaste. Even though I like mint and chocolate, don't get me wrong. Mint chocolate chips is my favorite ice cream. I'm one of those people, but mint Oreos?
I don't know if I've ever had a mint Oreo because I like Thin Mints.
I like Thin Mints too. I love Thin Mints. I love Andy's Mints.
Anything else that's like mint flavored, I'm like, I kind of balk against. I do like a York peppermint patty, but I am 80 years old in a body like this.
She has one a day.
It's true. Oh, God. Did you do the Saturday, March 5th New York Times?
Yes. And so there's like a truck backing up in my alley. If you hear
what
beeping.
is going on?
I don't know. Everyone's like, let's make a bunch of noise right when Grace is recording her podcast.
That's okay. If I'm talking, I can edit out noise on your end. So.
And then every time I talk, it's just like,
yeah. No, sorry, listeners. I do what I do what I can with the editing.
She does what she can.
So the Saturday New York Times was by Nam Jin Yoon. I really liked 5 across because this is like my new identity. quote, I don't believe you. And the answer was prove it. I will say prove it to seemingly innocuous statements of fact. So if someone was like, oh yeah, I just went to the store, I say prove it, like literally for no reason, because I think it's hilarious.
That's the reason.
Yeah, that's the reason. And then I liked 14 across, needle exchange, question mark. And the answer was friendly banter, which I was like, oh, cute. If you don't needle your friends, what are you doing?
It's a fine line, though.
It's true. I have crossed the line. But, I mean, you gotta cross the line to know where it is. Anyway, 58 across, wrap order, question mark, was end scene. I liked that.
That's really nice.
And then 10 down, I read it as contracting sheet. But it's actually supposed to be read as contracting sheet, and it is ice cap.
Oh.
Sad, but...
They're trying to trick you.
But tricky. And good in that way. What else you got?
The Monday New York Times by Sam Acker. 35 down, what gossipy people love to stir up. Drama.
I'm here for the drama.
Us.
Yes.
But not real drama. We like to actually just like circulate harmless lies.
See what sticks,
you know?
And see what people believe, honestly. Yeah.
And then this was just funny to see in the New York Times, 57 down, Bacchanalian party. Orgy. Sometimes Will Shortz lets an orgy slip in every now and then.
He sometimes does that. Speaking of things in the New York Times, I felt like there was a couple funny ones in the Thursday New York Times. Did you do that one?
You mean from today?
Today, yes.
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't do that one.
The Thursday New York Times is by John Westwig. I'll talk to you about the theme in a second, but I liked 55 across, drop it, exclamation point. And the answer is acid, which is fun. And so if you don't know, if a clue has an exclamation point at the end of it, you have to take the clue and make it into a noun, essentially. So they're not necessarily looking for, when it's drop it, exclamation point, they're not looking for a synonym for drop it. They're looking for a noun to replace the phrase drop it. Like drop it being acid. Anyway, and then 47 down was, quote, neat. And the answer was noise. Noice. I was like, who approved this? And then this was really funny because it came shortly after. So Marco Rubio was clued in the puzzle, and like directly after Marco Rubio was 52 down. Swirl in a toilet bowl, say. And the answer was Eddie, like Eddy, which is crosswordese. You see that in, puzzles all the time. But the fact that clue came right after Marco Rubio was clued, and it was swirl in a toilet, say, which is such a random way to clue Eddie. I was like, who said yes to this, honestly? But very satisfying. The theme was really fun, too. It took us a bit to figure it out. So the theme had a revealer, 56 across, change careers, or a hint to this puzzle's theme. So the answer was switch jobs, and the themed answers are as follows. I'll just give you them, and you can piece it together that way. 17 across, equestrian is wanted to / experience needed conducting, and the answer was train a ride. So equestrian is wanted to is to train a ride, like a ride being a horse. And then experience needed conducting is ride a train.
Oh,
you get it?
Okay. Yeah.
Another 12 down. Museum curator is wanted to / experience needed freestyle dancing. And the answer is move a bust. So a museum curator is wanted to move a bust. And then experience needed freestyle dancing is bust a move.
Bust a move. Okay.
Fun, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll do this one since you're an accountant. Well, this really doesn't have anything to do with accounting. It just has to do with money. 31 down. Nurse is wanted to / experience needed philanthropy. And the answer is check a cut or cut a check.
Nice.
So it was fun. Noise.
I feel like I used to say noise all the time on AIM.
AIM. Wow, throwing it back. We're throwing it way back today. You got anything else?
Well, I liked the Tuesday, March 8th New York Times by Mary Lou Guizzo.
Mm-hmm.
It was on International Women's Day, and well, I think Mary's a woman. But all the themed answers were just famous women in history. So 17 across, 1966 Swedish literature nobelist who wrote about the struggles of the Jewish people was Nellie Sachs. 1988, or 23 across, 1988 American nobelist in physiology or medicine who helped develop the first drug used to fight rejection in organ transplants, Gertrude Elion. 2018 Canadian physics nobelist who helped implement chirped pulse amplification, Donna Strickland. 1976 peace nobelist from Northern Ireland who co-founded the community of peace people, Betty Williams. And then 1911 Polish-French chemistry nobelist who pioneered research in radioactivity, Marie Curie. Although I feel like she's always in the crossword.
Yes.
The other ones, not so much. But
correct.
It was just nice.
It was good to see ladies that are like doing things in science and things, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. And that their full names were in there. So this must have been like fun to construct.
Yes, exactly. Or tricky too, you know?
Yes.
Let me see. I also liked, hold on a second, where is it? The Wednesday, March 9th New Yorker by Natan Last. I liked 31 across. They might come out of the closet. And the answer was linens.
Nice.
You got yourself a linen closet. And then 35 across. Deal with stuffing, question marks. Question mark, sorry, singular, question mark. The answer was all you can eat. Cute.
That is a deal.
It is a deal.
It's only a deal if you can eat a lot in one sitting.
It's true. Because the quality of the food is often not that great.
No, but I'm thinking of like sushi.
Sushi
gets me like full too quick, so I don't really save money by doing that, in case anyone wants to know.
Yeah, no, I used to do all you can eat sushi like in college, and I would be in physical pain because they charge you for not finishing. And so it's like, I'm like throwing rolls into my bag for Christ's sake. Anyway. 28 across, tube warning.
Mind the gap.
I thought that was fun. And then I really liked this one, not because of like what the actual answer is, but because what I thought the answer was. 43 across, or what I read the answer to be. 43 across, stereotypical test subjects. And the answer is lab rats, but I read it as LA brats. And I was like,
and you're like, yep.
True. Yes. So some good puzzles this week.
Do people in England wear shirts that say mind the gap? Or is that just an American thing?
Is that just cringe?
That,
or are
that like we think is cool? Because what's the equivalent? Imagine, like, what do they say in the CTA?
Pledge of Allegiance. I don't know.
No, they don't.
Like doors open on the left.
Yeah.
I would actually probably wear that.
I would too. You know, nothing's stopping us from making whatever we want on a t-shirt. So, you know, it'd be funny to do like the Mind the Gap logo, but have doors open, like just replace the words with doors open on the left.
We should do that. British government, UK government, don't come for us. Is that all?
That's all I got.
That's all I got.
Yeah.
All right. So that means we're moving into the coin flip.
The coin, or else.
Do not threaten me. You know what happens when you threaten me. I just cry a lot. So, okay.
She's very sensitive.
Yeah, I'm flipping the coin now. Who's it gonna? Oh my God, it's tails.
Me? I feel like I haven't gone for. Well, I like overtook your time going first.
That's okay. I'm curious to see what topic you have because I feel like we could potentially do this same topic, but I would honestly be surprised.
We could do this one, but if you wouldn't be surprised. My topic comes from the Monday, March 7th New York Times by Sam Ackler. 22 across, when doubled, popular 1990s sitcom featuring Tia and Tamara Mowry.
Sister.
Is that what you did?
It is not, but I did see that and I was like, Grace might do Sister.
Well, not Sister, even though I do love that show, and I watched it through twice since they put it on Netflix. I'm going to talk about twins. You know, millennials are obsessed with twins because we had so much freaking twin media shoved in our faces.
We did.
I don't think that exists today like it did.
No.
Back then.
I'm obsessed with twins. I'm obsessed with knowing twins. I'm obsessed with wanting to be a twin. I was meant to be a twin.
Yeah, I feel like we should have been twins.
I know.
Maybe in our next life we'll come out as twins.
Okay. I'll meet you on the other side, and we'll harass whoever is brewing up the orders.
I feel like I don't know any twins, but my brother-in-law's a twin, but he never talks about it, you know? I feel like there's some people who are twins and they just don't care.
My aunt and uncle are twins.
On what side of the family? My
dad's side.
Oh, well, okay, then you might be in luck here. So, I'm going to talk about that.
I know. Anyway, I feel like they skip I've heard that twins skip generations. I don't know how true this is, so I'm curious.
They don't really, but I'll explain how it works.
Okay.
So, let's talk about twins. There's two main types of twins, fraternal and identical. Fraternal twins are when two different eggs are fertilized by two different sperm. They each get their own placenta, and genetically they are the same as any other siblings. They are just born at the same time. Fraternal twins are the hereditary kind. Some women have hyperovulation genes, so their body releases two eggs at the same time instead of the usual one. Men who have fraternal twins in their family may carry the hyperovulation gene, but it does not increase the chance of their partner having twins because it doesn't control whether the woman hyperovulates. So, like, even if a man's parents are fraternal twins, that doesn't mean when he impregnates his wife, like, it doesn't affect her ovulation. So, it doesn't increase their chances.
But because
However,
I'm my dad's daughter.
Yes. So, a man can pass on the hyperovulation gene to his daughter, so she might be more susceptible to having fraternal twins. So, that's true.
Which is why it would skip a generation. Okay.
Yes.
Potentially.
Yeah. So, like, your brothers don't have higher chances.
Right.
But you do. But fraternal twins don't necessarily need to be passed down in genes. Women over the age of 35 have more estrogen and are more likely to hyperovulate. Fertility treatments can also cause women to hyperovulate. So twin births have nearly doubled over the last 40 years because women are having babies later. So if you're over 35, you have more of a chance. And also if you do IVF or anything like that, you also have more of a chance. So
I never dream about having kids, but like I am selfish enough to want twins.
Twins are, I mean, the thing that I think about with twins is like when you have to buy two of everything at once. Like, you know, my sister, she just uses the same thing she had for my niece, for my nephew. But it's like twins, it's like you got to get 2 car seats, 2, you know, double the amount of diapers.
Just kidding. I take it back.
Everything.
I'll be a good aunt.
There's pros
to
and
a twin.
cons.
Yeah, I'll be a good aunt to a twin. I don't know. Or basically, it comes back to I should have been a twin. Moving on.
Yeah. That's the end of it. We should have been twins.
Should have been.
Okay. Let's talk about identical twins. That is completely random phenomenon. I mean, they don't know what causes it, but it seems to be random. So identical twins are when a fertilized egg splits after it's fertilized.
Wow.
The zygotes are genetically identical since they come from the exact same sperm and egg. And if the egg splits early enough, then each twin will have their very own placenta and inner sac, which is what you want, because if they split later, then they might share placenta. Some might even share an inner sac. And that means they share the blood supply, and sometimes it can be unequal between the two babies. It can cause health issues. So if you have twins that share a placenta, then it's like a very monitored pregnancy. So some general twin trivia. Identical twins have different fingerprints, even though they have the same DNA. So like in a crime scene, if they're doing by DNA, you could be like identical twins would get messed up. But if they do fingerprints, they could tell you apart.
Okay. Oh my God. So if you're an identical twin doing a crime, wear gloves.
Exactly. And then blame it on your twin. Twins occur in 1 in 250 pregnancies. Which is actually kind of a lot.
That's a lot.
But I guess it makes sense. I think about my high school, there was like multiple twins in my high school.
It's true.
Black women have the highest incidences of twins.
Cool.
So while it's not like they don't know what causes identical twins, there are some, you know, coincidences, but they just don't know exactly what. Also, women with 4 or more children are 3 times more likely to have twins.
I wonder if that's because if you're a lot of like women having kids early and then they have 3 or 4 kids, and then by the time they're 35, they have another kid, and it's more likely. I don't know.
Or if it's like your hormones just change so much after that many pregnancies that you're like, you have more estrogen. I don't know.
Your body's like, let's do this shit.
I think the Michelle Duggar, the like 19 kids and counting lady, I think there's only like 2 twins in all of her kids.
Okay.
Fraternal twins are more common in women who are tall and heavier, though this may be more related to nutrition than body size. During the food shortage in World War II, fraternal twins decreased in Europe. So I feel like if your body doesn't think you can support fraternal twins, it won't ovulate at the same time.
Oh, okay.
What about twins being absorbed in the womb? Spontaneous loss of one fetus occurs in 20% of twin pregnancies.
That's a lot.
That is. And I wonder how many times it used to happen before they would have like the ultrasounds really early on.
Yeah.
And be able to see like, okay, there's 2.
Oh my God.
Now there's just 1.
Yeah.
And you're stronger than ever. So maybe you had absorbed a twin.
Yeah.
Mirror twins is a term used to describe twins, identical twins, whose characteristics mirror each other. Their hair may cowlick on the opposite side. They might have asymmetrical birthmarks or dimples. They can even be like one is right-handed, one is left-handed. In extremely rare cases, one twin may have internal organs on the opposite side.
Okay.
Isn't that wild? And they don't know what causes it. It's that is very rare though.
Okay.
Okay. Obviously twins are like one of the best ways to study nature versus nurture. So I'm going to talk about some twin studies.
Okay.
Earthsky.org posted an article called 5 Discoveries We Owe to Twins that was based on the University of Melbourne research facility that has been studying twins since 1990. These are some of the discoveries that twin research has helped make. 1. Finding the genetic link of breast cancer. Finding that most forms of epilepsy are genetic and not caused by things like head injuries or difficult births, which was previously thought.
Interesting.
Identifying different factors, lifestyle versus genetic, that can affect how our brain ages in old age. So, like, as far as like dementia and stuff like that. And then this one seemed more problematic, but math and reading skills are genetic, which brings me to the ethical issue of twin studies. And also the fact that most twins are raised in the same environment and go to the same school, have the same resources, so it's not really a fair study. And if we start to say things like intelligence is genetic, then we go down a slippery slope of eugenics, which is what we saw with Francis Galton, who is the man who coined the term eugenics. Before he got into eugenics, he was obsessed with twin research. He wrote a paper in like 1875 about how important it is. And then he became a vocal proponent of eugenics and said, quote, a highly gifted race of men could be produced through selective breeding. So.
Okay.
But in response to that, in 2003, Eric Turkheimer looked into all the IQ twin research, and he found that most of the studies that found that IQ is genetic involved twins from middle-class backgrounds. So he looked into twins from lower-income families and found that IQs of identical twins varied just as much as IQs of fraternal twins, basically finding that the impact of growing up poor can overwhelm a child's natural intellectual gifts. So there's a lot of nurture that goes into that. So every kid needs to be nurtured to reach their full potential.
Right. And like, does this like account for like neurodivergence? You know, like one twin having some sort of neurodivergence and another twin not. Because, and then like, are they given the resources that they need to perform at the level that they need to be able to perform to match their twin? Yes. Exactly.
And like how are they measuring intelligence? That's an issue with like all of these studies. Most people talk about genetic links to cancer, but twin studies have shown that genetics can affect much more than that. Tim Spector is the director of the Twins UK registry, which has collected data from 12,000 twins. Spector and his colleagues have published more than 600 papers that show genetics may cause common diseases like osteoarthritis, cataracts, and back pain. A 2001 study by the Michigan State University Twin Registry shows that genes account for the same variability in eating disorders as they do in schizophrenia and bipolar disorder.
Interesting.
But it's so hard to tell because it's also like most twins are raised together. And have the same parent. Well, they have the same parents, but we'll get into that a little bit though.
Okay.
In 1990, Claude Bouchard did a study looking into how genes affect body fat storage. He housed a dozen lean men, identical and fraternal twins, and overfed them with the exact same calories every day for 3 months. While all participants gained weight, the amount and placement varied from 9 pounds to 29 pounds. The identical twins gained weight very similarly.
Interesting.
Which I feel like we all know.
Yeah.
In 2008, Swedish researcher Niklas Langstrom tried to learn about the, quote, gay gene by studying twins in Sweden, and the findings are kind of hard to understand. This study is controversial. Again, it's just like the small sample size. The twins who agreed to be in the study were probably gay because they were like interested in the study. But the findings are that for men, genetics accounted for 35% of the differences, whatever that means. Other non-shared environmental factors, like that doesn't include like family or societal attitudes, accounted for 64%. So in other words, men become gay or straight because of different developmental pathways, not just one pathway. For women, genetics explained 18% of the variation in same-sex behavior. Non-shared environment, roughly 64%. But shared factors like the family and environment explained 16%, while with men it didn't. This also can go into like, sexuality being fluid and women being allowed to explore that more and men like not being allowed to be on the
there's
spectrum,
the question being raised of like how like like you're saying like family life and societal expectations weren't necessarily included, but like if you're in an environment where like sexuality is like talked about and your family and your community is like open to exploration and supportive, then like more people are more likely to be out, right?
Yes. But I know a lot of queer siblings. This is just like me talking about what's it called, like just based on people I know in real life.
Sure.
It's obviously not a study. But I feel like there's so many queer siblings, and sometimes they're from families that don't accept them at all. It's not like they were raised around it, but they were also raised the same. But it's not like they knew that was an option. So,
but then it's
very interesting.
I found like a TikTok where it was like, we asked 100 teens like how they identify. And like, I'm telling you, like over 90% of them identified as not straight in some way or another. And I think partially that's due to like the way society is like changing Western society is changing its attitudes towards the LGBT community, and also like the types of resources people have. Like I think about, if you're saying like twins or not twins, like siblings coming out and like 3 siblings coming out in a family of conservatives that don't support them, like are they sitting on Tumblr at night, all night, every night, like surrounded by LGBT like community and having a support system that maybe they don't have it in their home, but they have it outside the home? So I'd be interested to, like, it's hard to say like doing that study now where things are a little bit more liberal versus doing a study maybe 50 years ago, what the results would have been like. Yeah.
I also think it's hard to research because there's not, it's fluid and it's a scale, so it's hard to have like really objective data.
Yeah.
I think I read somewhere else, this might be wrong, but it's something that like if you have 3 older brothers, you're more likely to, and you're a guy, you're more likely to be gay or something like that. Like if you're the 4th boy.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But basically the one good thing that the study did is that it concluded that there's not one thing that makes someone gay. So like there's nothing you can do to stop it. There's no like genetic thing. There's no like one different thing you can do to like raise someone differently. So anyways, that's that. All of these studies have issues because twins were raised together. So while they have the same genetic nature, they also share a lot of nurture as well. But in rare and often unethical cases, twins are raised separately. So let's look at some of those findings. In 1979, Thomas Bouchard, the director of the Minnesota Center for Twin and Family Research, looked at twins reared apart. He found that identical twins raised apart often have very similar personalities, interests, and attitudes. One study looked at a pair of identical twin men who were reunited at the age of 39.
Wow.
Both had married women named Linda, divorced, and then married a second woman named Betty. Both of them. One named his son James Allen with 2 L's, the other James Allen with 1 L. They both named their dogs Toy. They both suffered from tension headaches, were prone to nail biting, smoked Salem cigarettes, drove the same type of car, and even vacationed at the same beach in Florida.
What?
Isn't that wild? I think that's like one of the most rare cases.
Yeah.
In another study, the researchers took photographs of the twins and found that identical twins would stand the same way, while fraternal twins had different postures. Other studies found that genetics had a strong influence on dental or gum health, which I could have told you because I've been flossing every day for a decade, and it's still not good enough. So, whereas there's people who like don't brush their teeth, and they've never had a cavity in their life.
I'm sorry to say that to you. It is life.
Twins reared apart studies have also shown that 50% of a person's religiosity is determined by genes. But
okay,
again, I don't know, like, yeah, because I mean, if they were both
how do you gauge
coincidentally, yeah. Well, I guess it's like how involved you are. But if they were both raised in like religious households, then you know, it's not. You can't totally do like a fair study.
Sure.
But there's a documentary that most people have probably heard of called Three Identical Strangers about identical male triplets who were separated at birth who met when they were 19 by mere coincidence. This story is like so crazy and interesting, and people should watch the documentary if they're interested. I can't go into like everything, but the triplets shared a lot of similarities. They had a lot of the same mannerisms, and they sat the same way. They were all wrestlers, liked the same colors, had the same taste in older women, and even bought the same brand of cigarettes. Weird. Just like the other guys.
Weird.
However, there were differences in their susceptibility to mental illness. The one who was reared by an authoritarian father in a lower income family was more seriously affected by mental illness than the two who had warmer, more nurturing parents. Sadly, they also found out that they were separated at birth on purpose for a nature versus nurture study. They were placed in 3 different socioeconomic households, and over the course of their lives, they were visited by researchers pretending to be from the adoption agency.
That is so fucked up.
It is. And then I learned that one of the triplets sadly died by suicide.
God.
Because the one who was raised in the unstable household.
Jesus.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was really messed up. Obviously, you can go, there's a whole documentary on it. I think it's on Netflix. Look into it. But on a little bit of a lighter note, I'm going to end talking about the mixed up twins of Colombia. This story is crazy, and I remember reading it like years ago. So 2 sets of identical twins were born in 1988 in Colombia. We'll call them the red twins and the blue twins.
Okay.
One twin from each set had complications and had to stay at the hospital, like after birth. However, a mistake was made, and the red twin went home with the blue family, and the blue twin went home with the red family. So each family thought that they had a set of fraternal twins, one red and one blue.
Oh my God.
One day, at work in a butcher shop, a blue twin was recognized by someone who swore they were friends. They were like, you're George. He's like, no, I'm not. And it's like, no, you are. And then the friend was like, well, maybe you have a twin because you look just like this guy. And George was like, I do have a twin, but he's fraternal. Anyways, somehow the friends were able to arrange it. So all the twins met up, and then they realized what had happened because they were like, oh my God, you're my identical twin. So one set of twins was raised in a very rural area of Colombia, while the other stayed in Bogota. So when they met up, they immediately got along with their identical twin. And then they noticed that a lot of one set of twins was more reserved and the other one was more outgoing. The more outgoing one claimed that they were better dancers and bigger flirts. They both got their eyebrows waxed, had similar girlfriends, and were hypersensitive as kids. And they also suffered more medical issues than their non-bio brothers.
That is, of course, wild.
I know. The news was hard for everyone, especially the twins that were switched, because they realized that they weren't biologically related to
their whole
the family that had raised them.
Oh my God.
But at the end of the day, they now consider themselves 4 brothers, and they actually have started a company together. So I'm going to end with a quote from the article on BBC.com from them. Quote, "But for all the differences between each pair of twins, there's something all 4 share. The will to build a positive relationship out of an event that had the potential to cause pain, and the determination to see a brother regardless of blood ties."
Oh my God. What I find beautiful about that story is there was no intentional harm. Nobody was intentionally trying to separate them. Obviously it happened. So it's at least there's no trauma of I mean, there's probably still trauma of like being, this isn't my biological family, but at least it's not that trauma of like finding out you're adopted or like finding out like this was intentionally done to you, like separating you, like for that study. I can't imagine.
Yeah. And also crazy to think about that the two families like had such different lives. So to be the twin that was switched and be like, oh, I was supposed to grow up in like this small tiny town outside Columbia, but I grew up in the city and I did like all these things.
Yeah. That's wild.
Crazy.
I'm
glad that they're all friends.
Yes, and they're starting
and brothers.
Yeah. I'm actually watching a show right now about identical twins, and it's like a drama, but they were raised together until they were 8 and then separated by their parents when their parents got a divorce. And like one was raised really affluently, like in like an affluent life, and the other was like, raised very, they struggled a lot. And one is in a gang and the other's like college educated, and they have this like connection of like they can feel when the other's in pain. And I've always been interested in like that element of twins, because I've heard that some twins can like, I don't know how legitimate this is, but like feel when their twin is in pain, especially if it's identical, because they're identical twins and they can like feel when the other is in pain. So anyway, that's my twin story right now.
I mean, there was so much. I like can't go into all of it, but it was so like the people who got reunited after so many years, it was like they had an instant connection with the person. They had like the same sense of humor. It's crazy to think like how much of our personality was like already predetermined.
Yeah.
But I also feel like when you see like, since I've been able to see my niece and nephew, grow up from birth, I guess people with parents see this too, or parents see this about their kids, but like you really do see their personality like from the get-go. Yeah. And my niece and nephew have very different personalities, even though they have the same parents. Obviously, like slightly different situations that they're raised in, but it's like I know Lily's personality now that she's 4, and like some things that she did when she was a baby, I'm like, oh yeah, that's so her.
Yeah, and I just wonder how what about my personality as a baby or a child like is similar to how I am now. I know that I used to like love putting on dance shows and putting on plays and performances. And like for sure, that is something I love to do to this day. I was like a ham. Like I was often described as a ham.
I was not a ham. I was like a shy kid. Very serious, but like would laugh at, like in pre-K, apparently I got switched to pre-K in the middle of the year, and the teachers were worried because like I like didn't talk at all. And then one day something made me laugh, and then I laughed and was fine for the rest of the time.
Oh, Grace.
But yeah, no, I was did not like to be in front of people. Interesting though. But yeah, listeners, if you're twins,
let us know. Because if you don't, we're gonna hold it against you when we find out.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. Like, if you're a twin and you don't mention it within a minute of meeting us for the first time, I don't trust you, because then you're hiding something.
You are, seriously. Especially if you're identical. Especially if you're identical.
Fraternal, it's like
you can forgive it. I
live in
guess.
Different cities, it's fine. But identical?
No.
No.
Good topic.
Yes. I know. I feel like I could have gone way more into depth. I was like, I'm already like past my normal word count.
That's okay. Because I love this topic. So thank you.
Your turn.
So my topic comes from the Tuesday, March 8th New York Times by Mary Lou Guizzo. One across. Bacall's partner in a classic Hollywood romance, informally. And the answer is Bogey. Bogie. Did you do this puzzle? I think you did. The Tuesday?
Monday?
Tuesday, New York Times.
I did, yeah.
So, I'm talking about Bogey and Bacall today. Do you know the story of Bogey and Bacall? You probably don't.
No,
but
I don't.
For context, I was obsessed with classic American films in high school. Like, to the point where I would come home from high school and put on Turner Classic Movies and watch 4 movies a night.
Oh my gosh.
And
I didn't do homework.
No, I should have done. But, like, truly, I was watching so many classic movies. And Bogey and Bacall, their full names is Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart. So we're talking about their classic Hollywood romance today.
Ooh, okay.
And when I was watching films like this in high school, I was obsessed with Bogey and Bacall. I was obsessed with them. So I'm really excited about this topic, and we're going to have some juicy things to talk about. So, okay, I'm going to start first by giving you a very brief rundown of Humphrey's history and Lauren's history, and then we're going to jump into their romance story. Okay, we'll start with Bogey, aka Humphrey Bogart. He was born December 25th, 1899 in New York City. So he was, a Sagittarius. His full name was Humphrey DeForest Bogart. He was born to a very prominent New York family. His dad was a heart surgeon, and his mother was an illustrator at a woman's magazine. She was a very talented artist. Mm-hmm. Humphrey Bogart was a top American actor in the 40s and 50s, and he was known for his tough guy persona. Have you seen any Humphrey Bogart films? For instance,
think so.
Casablanca is his most famous.
No.
Okay. Well.
Sorry, I'm not cool like you.
Moving on. Okay. He only got started in acting because he didn't have a very good academic career. His parents really, really wanted him to go to Yale. They were super successful and smart and wealthy. And they sent him to all these really prominent, famous boarding schools in New England. He flunked, or he was expelled from his boarding school. And so his basically dreams of going to Yale were dashed. But he was friends with a playwright named Alice Brady. And so he got a job with Alice Brady working as a stagehand for her. And one day, one of the actors for her plays couldn't make it. And so they had to throw Bogey on to fill in. And he was like, damn, I love this. The rest is history. He fell in love with acting. And so essentially he spent most of the 20s acting in bit parts on Broadway. And he got his first, he got some lead parts, but his biggest stage role was when he played Duke Mantee in The Petrified Forest in 1935. He received glowing reviews, and he received the respect of his co-star, Leslie Howard. And Leslie Howard, at the time, was one of the most famous British actors. It's a man, not a woman, in case the name threw you. And so Howard insisted to Warner Brothers that they hire Bogart to play Duke Mantee for the film adaptation of the play. And Warner Brothers was like, this is kind of like a nobody. Yeah, he's done really well on Broadway, but nobody knows him. We were going to have Edward G. Robinson play Duke Mantee, and Leslie Howard was like, no, you have to pick Bogart. So they did, and he was an overnight success. He starred across from Leslie Howard, like I said, one of the most famous British actors at the time, and Bette Davis, who was a queen of all queens. And the film premiered in 1936. His career took off after this. Warner Brothers signed him to a contract, and that essentially meant he needed to move from New York to LA. Some of his films from this time period were Angels with Dirty Faces, The Roaring Twenties, and Dark Victory. But it was two films in 1941 that kind of marked a turning point in his Hollywood career. The first was High Sierra. He played a killer with a tortured soul, which was a departure from a lot of the one-dimensional thug roles he'd been playing up until this point. And then the next was The Maltese Falcon, which is one of the most famous, classic Hollywood films. He played Detective Sam Spade. The director was John Huston. And it was an adaptation of a Dashiell Hammett spy novel or thriller, detective thriller. And it was a film classic. He made it so his portrayal of that noir detective is what set the formula for all noir detective depictions ever made since. So if you're watching a detective film now and it's set in that kind of 20s vibe, you have Humphrey Bogart to thank for that vibe. Okay.
And I do.
And she does. She says her prayers every night to Humphrey Bogart. Now we're at 1942. Bogart is cast as Rick Blaine in Casablanca. The production for Casablanca, I didn't realize, was super chaotic. They didn't even have a finished script when they went to film it, and nobody expected it to do well. And this was Humphrey Bogart's first romantic lead role. But it is rated number 3 on the AFI's top 100 list of American classic films, third only to The Godfather and what's the other one? Citizen Kane. So it's ranked as one of the best films of all time, and of course Humphrey Bogart was in it. And the film won an Oscar, and it was Humphrey Bogart's first Oscar nomination for Best Actor. He did not win, but it was his first Oscar nomination. Some other impressive films from his career: To Have and Have Not, 1944, The Big Sleep, 1946, The Treasure of Sierra Madre, 1948, Key Largo, 1948, The African Queen in 1951, and The Cane Mutiny, 1954. He won an Oscar for The African Queen, and he was nominated for The Cane Mutiny. All of these films are really good. Let's see. So, he was married a couple times throughout this whole period of like being on Broadway and then moving to LA. His first marriage was to an actress, Helen Menken, in 1927. They eventually divorced later that year. Menken said that the reason for the divorce was because he neglected her and focused on his career instead. He then married another actress, Mary Phillips, 1928. But when he decided to move to LA, they were like, fine, we'll go long distance. And Mary decided to stay in New York because she had a successful stage career. They eventually ended up getting a divorce in 1937. So they were married for almost a decade, but they ended up splitting
That's
up.
a long time in Hollywood.
That's a long time. And then in 1938, just a year after his second divorce, he married Mayo Methot, an actress who he met through mutual friends. Apparently, she had a serious drinking problem. She was known as a drinker and a fighter.
Okay.
And she was a huge problem. She was prone to fits of jealousy. And their marriage was so fractious that the press called them the Battling Bogarts. There's even a story of she once stabbed him with a knife because
Oh my God.
of something or other. And I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to jump to Lauren now. Lauren Bacall. She was born September 16th, 1924 in the Bronx. Her full name was Betty Joan Persky, or Persk. She was the only child of Natalie Bacall and William Persk. Both of her parents were Jewish. Her mother emigrated from Romania, and her father was from New Jersey, but his family comes from like a Jewish region or community from Belarus.
Mm-hmm.
Her upbringing was very different than Bogart. She was strictly middle class. Her mom was like a secretary. Her dad was a salesman, but they divorced when she was 6 because her dad was an absolute asshole. He was never around, and when he was around, he was not friendly to her mother. That's what Lauren said in her own words.
Mm-hmm.
And so she later adopted an altered version of her Romanian Jewish mother's name. Bacall was spelled Bacal, and she added a second L to like make it easier to pronounce.
Mm-hmm.
Her dream from a very early age was to become an actress, specifically the second coming of Bette Davis, whom she worshipped. She was a student at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts for a little bit, and while she was there, she relentlessly pursued a theatrical break. And here are some things that she did to get her break. She barged into the office of Broadway producer Max Gordon and begged for a role. She struck up a friendship with actor Paul Lucas. She sold the casting tip sheet actors queue outside Sardi's. She went on age-inappropriate dates, especially with a guy named Burgess Meredith, who she met while volunteering at Stage Door Canteen. So she was literally like playing the field, trying to do anything she could to catch her break. She was also an usher at the St. James Theater, and one famous theater critic, George Jean Nathan, wrote in 1942 in an issue of Esquire, quote, "The prettiest theater usher, the tall, slender blonde in the St. James Theater, right aisle during the Gilbert and Sullivan engagement, by general rapt agreement among the critics, but the bums are too dignified to admit it." Basically, that was her first raving review about how freaking gorgeous she is. Would recommend looking up pictures of this woman, like, so gorgeous. She's like one of the prettiest women I've ever seen in my life. Anyway, so she did eventually make her stage debut. It was a day after she turned 18. It was in a George Kaufman play called Franklin Street, but it closed in Washington, D.C. after its tryout. So I thought that was interesting because you talked about...
Yes, now we know what that means.
Now we know what that means. But because she was so gorgeous, and because the theater critic Nathan had said she was so gorgeous, she ended up in the office of Diana Vreeland, who was at the time the editor at Harper's Bazaar. And so they were like, fuck it, you're gorgeous. We're going to put you on the cover of Harper's Bazaar. And so they put her on the cover of Harper's Bazaar. In 43, it's a photo of her standing in front of a Red Cross office door. Now, this is important because this photo is what launched her career. The photo caught the attention of Nancy Slim Hawks. That's her nickname, Slim.
Ooh.
Which is so good, right?
Amazing. Hey, Slim.
Hey, Slim. And so Nancy Slim Hawks was the wife of movie director Howard Hawks, who's one of the most famous American directors from the 40s and 50s. And Slim suggested to her husband that they give Bacall a screen test for his next film, To Have and Have Not. And so Hawk was like, sure, let's do it. And here's a quote from Lauren Bacall. There's an incredible article on Vanity Fair called To Have and Have Not. It's written by, well, let me get his name here, Matt Treinauer. It is long and gorgeous. He went to her New York apartment in like 2011. She passed away in 2014. And so he was like one of the last people to be with her and interview her. And this interview is just so amazing. And she's so frank about her life and her career and her relationship with Bogey. So a lot of the information I have comes from this article. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so this is a quote from that article. Quote, "Of course, it was Howard Hawks who changed my life. Despite all of his great accomplishments, bringing up Baby, Scarface, some of the best pictures to date, his one ambition was to find a girl and invent her, to create her as his perfect woman. He was my Svengali, and I was to become, under his tutelage, this big star, and he would own me. And he would also like to get me into his bed, which of course, horrors, it was the furthest thing from my mind. I was so frightened of him. He was the old gray fox, and he always told me stories of how he dealt with Carol Lombard and Rita Hayworth, how he tried to get them to listen to him, and they didn't, so they never got the parts they should have gotten, and their careers took much longer to take off." So, she knew so much about, like, she attributes like her career taking off to Howard Hawks, but he's a psychopath. Let's just put it that way. She goes to LA. She passes her screen test. Hawks and his producing partner, Charles Feldman, put her through what this Vanity Fair article calls the Hollywood boot camp. So there were studio makeup artists, like they attempted to alter everything about her, like pluck her eyebrow, shave her hairline, straighten her teeth. She thwarted their efforts. Quote, "Howard had chosen me for my thick eyebrows and crooked teeth, and that's the way they would stay. She insisted on doing her own hair in the style that would become her trademark. Quote, the wave on the right, starting at the curve of the corner of my eyebrow and ending sloping downward at my cheekbone." You'll see pictures of her. It's like she has like a beautiful side part, and it like is this gorgeous curl down the side. It's amazing. And so one of the things I love about Lauren Bacall is just how like New York and like Bronx she feels. She's very much like, no, you're not shaving my eyebrows. Yeah. No, you're not shaving my hairline. She's very cool. But this was not the only thing that Howard Hawks was obsessed with doing. He was obsessed with changing her name. Remember her, she was born Betty Joan Persky, or she changed her last name to Bacall. Quote, "At lunch in the green room one day, Howard told me he had thought of a name, Lauren. He wanted me to tell everyone when the interviews began that it was my old family name, had been my great-grandmother's. Previously, he had asked her what her great-grandmother's name was, and she said Sophie. And he was like, no, because you need to be a sex symbol. Also, she found out that Howard Hawks was an anti-Semite. Quote, "He once made some remark about a Jew, and I turned cold. I'm sure I paled visibly. I was panic-stricken. She was afraid that if he found out, her chances of becoming a Hollywood star would be over." She talks in her autobiography, she talks a lot about her Jewish identity and how she hid it from like the public eye because she really wanted to make it big. Like everybody in like her close circle knew that she was Jewish, but she was not very like forward about it. And in her autobiography, she talks about how much regret she has for hiding it. And yeah, I mean, it sucks. One of the guy who was, quote, mentoring her or, quote, making her was, you know, an anti-Semite. Like and she was afraid of him. She was, at this age, she was 18 years old.
Wow. Wow, she's so young.
Yes. We're going to get to that.
Okay.
So anyway, so the name change. She never liked the name Lauren. Never felt comfortable being called Lauren. And her friends would call her Betty. And Bogart would call her Baby. So let's get to the good stuff. The romance. Yes. We're going to start in 1942. Lauren is 18 years old. Her mother and Aunt Rosalie take her to the Capitol Theater to see the recently released Casablanca, starring none other than Humphrey Bogart. In her autobiography, she writes, quote, "We all loved it, and Rosalie was mad about Humphrey Bogart. I thought he was good in it, but mad about him? Not at all. She thought he was sexy. I thought she was crazy. I couldn't understand Rosalie's thinking at all." Fast forward to 1943. Howard Hawks has moved Lauren to Hollywood and put her through the Hollywood boot camp. He got her cast in his next film, To Have and Have Not. He tells her that he's either going to cast her opposite Humphrey Bogart or Cary Grant. She says, quote, "I thought, Cary Grant, terrific. Humphrey Bogart, yuck," end quote. In the end, Howard Hawks decided to put her into Have and Have Not with Bogart. And the two actors met for the first time on the set of the film Passage to Marseille. Quote, "Howard told me to stay put. He'd be right back," which he was. With Bogart. He introduced us. There was no clap of thunder, no lightning bolt, just a simple, "How do you do?" Bogart was slighter than I imagined, 5'10.5", wearing his costume of no-shaped trousers, cotton shirt, and scarf around his neck. Nothing of import was said. We didn't stay long, but he seemed a friendly man. So, when the filming began of To Have and Have Not, Betty discovered that she was so terrified in front of the camera that she could barely function. No matter what the director tried, she couldn't gather her wits to perform her role. She was playing a femme fatale. Her character's name was Marie, and she really had to be this sultry femme fatale. And Bogart's character, his character's name was Steve, nicknames her Slim in the film, is an homage to Howard Hawks' wife, Slim. So in the film, Steve calls her Slim, which is actually really cute. So she recalls, quote, "Being ready for a straitjacket on the first day of shooting, Howard had planned to do a single scene that day, my first in the picture. I walked to the door of Bogart's room, said, 'Anyone got a match?' Leaned against the door, and Bogart threw me a small box of matches. I lit the cigarette, looking at him, said thanks, threw the matches back to him, and left. Well, we rehearsed it. My hand was shaking, my head was shaking, the cigarette was shaking. I was mortified. The harder I tried to stop, the more I shook. What must Howard be thinking? What must Bogart be thinking? What must the crew be thinking? Oh my God, make it stop. I was in such pain. The only way that she could, quote, hold my trembling head still was to keep her chin down as low as she possibly could go so that it was like to her chest. Okay. And then look up at Bogart through her eyelashes. And this accidentally became her signature thing. And it became known as the look.
The look.
The look.
Yeah. If I did that look, it'd be like, what's wrong with
I'm
you?
like,
yeah, it's like, sorry, I have like 20 chin.
She looks amazing doing it. Filming inevitably continued, and 3 weeks into the shoot, Bogart called on Bacall in her trailer to say goodnight. She was combing her hair. He was standing behind her, and she says, quote, "When suddenly he leaned over, put his hand under my chin, and kissed me. It was impulsive. He was a bit shy. No lunging wolf tactics. He took a worn package of matches out of his pocket and asked me to put my phone number on the back. I did. I didn't know why I did it. Except it was kind of a part of our game. Bogey was meticulous about not being too personal, was known for never fooling around with women at work or anywhere else. He was not that kind of man. And also he was married to a woman who was a notorious drinker and fighter. A tough lady who would hit you with an ashtray, lamp, anything, as soon as she could." And that's how their romance began, in secret. From
Wait,
Bogart.
how old is Humphrey Bogart during this time?
We'll get there. In secret from Bogart's current wife and director Howard Hawks, who, remember, he had eyes for Lauren Bacall. So they had to meet in cars on dark side streets for quiet lunches at the Lakeside Golf Club across from Warner Brothers, their lot in Burbank. And film historian Leonard Maltin says of the Bogart-Bacall affair on set of To Have and Have Not is, quote, obvious on screen. Quote, "It's one of these instances where it's quite possible that we are eyewitnesses to an actor or actress falling in love. And while good actors make us believe that all the time, there has to be some extra kick when it's real." What's really interesting about the way To Have and Have Not was filmed, it was filmed sequentially. So like from the very first scene to the very last scene. And so you can, as you're watching the film, you can just see the chemistry between them growing and growing and growing because they literally are, quote, falling in love while filming. But so yeah, let's wait. Hold on a second. Grace is asking a really good question. How old was Humphrey Bogart when all this was happening? Lauren was just 19 when she started filming. But by this point, Bogart's career was well established. So the romance began when she was 19 and he was 45 years old.
I hate it.
So it was really difficult for me to do this topic because when I was in high school, I idolized these two. I loved their romance. I remember hearing the story and reading all about it and obsessing over it. Truly, I was obsessed with it. The photos from their wedding are just gorgeous. She is gorgeous. He's got that quintessential Hollywood, glamorous, actor look to him.
Mm-hmm.
As a 30-year-old woman, I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck? So is this a classic Hollywood romance or is this a classic Hollywood grooming story? She was moved to LA to be groomed by Howard Hawks. That was his intention.
I mean, she just kept getting involved with these men, and that was the only way her career could, survive, kind of. She probably really thought that she was in love with him.
For sure. And
she was 19.
She was 19, and I think we really have the privilege of living in the 21st century and being able to look at this critically. But at the time, it was so not uncommon for 17-year-olds to marry 50-year-olds. And just because it was common doesn't mean it was right. I think we have to remind ourselves that we are allowed to look back on history and think that was fucked up. Interestingly enough, I'll say here, Bogey didn't want her to be an actress, not because he didn't want her to work. He was like, if you want to have a career, do it. I will support you forever. I will never marry you, is what he said. Because he had just had 3 failed marriages with actresses, and he just wanted a wife. I can understand a celebrity just wanting a regular person to be with. No weird drama with acting. Of course, she pushed back and she's like, F you. Because she's strong.
Why wouldn't he just quit acting and then
exactly
just be a husband?
Well, exactly. Because he didn't want to. And so she was like, F you. I want to marry you, have kids, and act. Which she did. Which is one of the reasons why I really like her. She's got that tough personality. But he was not, I don't think he was trying to use her and be like, have sex with me and I'll further your career. I don't think that was his goal. He was probably using her for other things, like a fetish. I don't get it. But anyway, so the romance begins in secret. Howard Hawks, the director, quickly realized that was going on because their chemistry was so intense. I recommend watching this film because you'll see. He went bonkers, apparently. The whole reason he had discovered her was essentially to groom her and make her his, which is just disgusting. Nevertheless, he had to play it cool. According to the Bogart biographer Eric Lax, Hawks was driven to such distraction by Bacall not being interested into him that he ended up having an affair with another woman in the film. It essentially, that affair with this other actress ruined her career, which is really sad. And he ended up actually reducing this woman's role in the film and bumping up screen time for Bogey and Bacall because the chemistry was so insane. He was like, we're going to make a ton of money from this. And then according to Bacall, quote, because of my romance with Bogey, Hawks saw his plan crumbling before his eyes. And midway through the production, she was actually called to the Hawks' home in Bel Air. Quote, just Hawks, Slim, and me. I was petrified. Howard threatened to send me to Monogram, which was the lowest of the low studios in Hollywood. I said to Bogey, sobbing, he's going to send me to Monogram. Bogey said, no, he's not. Don't you worry, no matter what he says. Because Howard used to say to Bogey, quote, you don't have to get serious about this girl. Take her downtown to a hotel and get a room with her. That's enough. That was not at all Bogey's scene, end quote. So Howard Hawks is like, use her and leave her. And Bogey's like, literally no. Okay, but finally, Bogey does end up divorcing his drunk wife, whatever, in 1945, and marries Lauren 11 days later. They get married at the home of the Pulitzer Prize winning author Louis Bromfeld It's on a farm in Lucas, Ohio. When she walked down the aisle, he said, "Hello, baby," to which she replied, "Oh, goody." He cried as they exchanged vows. Vows. Noel.
Vowels.
Vowels.
A-E-I-O-U.
A-E-I-O-U, exactly. They went on to make 3 more films together, The Big Sleep in 46, Dark Passage in 48, and Key Largo in 48. They had 2 children together, a son, Stephen, which was named after Bogey's character from To Have and Have Not, and a daughter, Leslie. In 1956, Bogey was diagnosed with cancer of the esophagus. He died less than a year later, in 1957, and Bacall was a widow at just 32. She ended up then having a very short-lived romance with Frank Sinatra. That whole story is bonkers. I will tell you after we get off this call. I was like, holy crap. And then she eventually remarried in 61 to another actor, Jason Robard, who she had another son with, Sam. Of the age difference, she says, quote, "Bogey was 25 years my senior. I fairly often have thought how lucky I was. I knew everybody because I was married to Bogey. And that 25-year difference was the most fantastic thing for me to have in my life. And by that, she meant." So Bogey was born in 1899. So he called himself an old century man because he was in that previous century. So she got to meet all of his friends, like Truman Capote, all these famous like Spencer Tracy, like famous actors that as a 19-year-old she would never have met otherwise. And she lived a very varied and rich life because of like the cultural connections that Bogey had. All that to say, she was still 25 years younger than him. So outside of the romance, there were elements of their marriage that are often lost to this lore of Bogey and Bacall. Notably, Bogey was a serious alcoholic. Bacall said, quote, "He changed his way of drinking a lot. He never stopped drinking, but he was never an alcoholic. Not even close to that. No, his drinking was all partying and having a great time, but he absolutely never drank when he worked. He grew up during the speakeasy era, so that's the way it was." And then their son, Stephen, however, wrote in his book, Bogart in Search of My Father, that both of his parents were terrified that the other would leave the marriage. The result was the friction of 2 insecure people. My mother, fortunately, was not a big drinker, but Bogey, of course, was. And when he drank, he would worry, and often he would lash out at my mother. Mom says that when Bogey drank too much, he felt remorseful. And when he drank too much, he often had a temper. She tells me there were times when Bogart was so loaded he didn't even know where he was or who she was. And then Bacall's response was to her son's book, quote, "He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about," end quote. So
Why would the son make that up? I feel like it's a little bit of like Stockholm syndrome type thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
For sure. And I think, too, like, you don't want to admit a weakness.
Yeah.
I don't think, like, I have a hard time admitting when I'm wrong about something. And I'm, like, in therapy and trying really hard to be a good person. But, like, these are people that, like, grew up and, like, lived and became adults in a time when, like, therapy wasn't a thing. Drinking was.
Yeah.
It reminds me very much of, like, you know, if you have, like, a toxic parent and you're like, you did something wrong. They're like, I didn't do anything wrong. It's
yeah,
like,
they're like, well, that's how everyone did it.
right. Like, have some accountability for yourself, first of all. So I'm just putting a lot of facts on the table for you here. And so in the article on Vanity Fair, she was asked, like, whether her relationship and marriage with Bogey kind of stymied her career a bit. She says that Bogey never wanted to have a wife. I told you this. But she was like, F you, we're getting married. Secondly, I want kids. Bogey was like, I never wanted kids. And she's like, we're having kids. And I'm going to keep working. And she did all 3. She married him, she had the kids, and she kept working. But then, of course, the whole mythology of being Bogey's wife had its own repercussions on her career. Quote, "I think many directors never thought of me except as Bogey's wife. Billy Wilder only thought of me as his wife. That doesn't lead to a great career, and I certainly did not fight for a career. So I guess you win some and you lose some. It was by choice, except, of course, it was, if you are ambitious, which I always was, it's very hard to erase that from your inner self. I finally felt that I came into my own when I went on the stage." She eventually left. I mean, she always was in films until she died, but she did a lot of acting on the stage. She won some Tonys. Yeah. And so that's Lauren Bacall and Bogey's classic Hollywood romance. I'm going to end with a couple funny descriptions of Lauren Bacall's personality from that Vanity Fair article. Like I said, this journalist went to talk with her in like 2011, a couple years before she passed away. And at this time, she was like wearing orthopedic shoes. She had an aluminum walker with like, tennis balls on the ends of it. And she had like recently fallen and hurt her hip. And so finally she was able to like get out and like go on her own and like go to physical therapy by herself. Like she didn't need to be carried around. She lived in a beautiful apartment right on Central Park, which is amazing. Okay. A fighter by nature, Bacall has begun to venture out, supported by her walker onto 72nd Street, going alone to physical therapy, for the most part unrecognized, just another senior citizen. Quote, people don't pay me any attention to me or my walker. The other night, I was going into a doctor's office and some son of a bitch came out of the building, almost knocked me over. I said, "You're a fucking ape," screaming at him. He never even turned around. Couldn't care less, the big horse of a man. End quote. That Amazing. Is like very much her personality to me. And then I'm going to end with one quote from her. There have always been rumors about me. Oh, she's very difficult. Be careful of her. People who don't know me, even some people who do know me, know that I say what I think. Very few people want to hear the truth. Bogey was like that, my mother was like that, and I'm like that. I believe in the truth, and I believe in saying what you think. Why not? Do you have to go around whispering all the time or playing a game with people? I just don't believe in that. So I'm not the most adored person on the face of the earth. You have to know this. There are a lot of people who don't like me at all. I'm very sure of that. But I wasn't put on this earth to be liked. I have my own reasons for being and my own sense of what's important and what isn't, and I'm not going to change that. End quote.
Good for her.
Yes. And sadly, she passed away when she was 89 years old in 2014. And one of the things she said, she was like, in this article, she's like, I can't imagine what my obituary is going to be. It's going to be all about Humphrey Bogart. I'm like, well, yeah, people like idolize this relationship of yours for decades.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
And yet, who knows what was going on behind the scenes?
Exactly. Although I do have to say, I cannot wait to share photos of them. You're going to die.
Well, if you want to see photos of them, then you should follow us on Instagram at the Good Evening Girls.
Yes, or TikTok at the Good Eve Girls, and also Twitter at the Good Eve Girls.
Yes. And until next time, remember to keep curious out there.
Do it.
Hug your dogs, because you never know when they might die and come back to life.
And stay, I don't know, warm, I guess, or something.
Yeah. Hang in there.
I guess.
Good luck.
Yeah, we'll see you next week, I think. And that's a wrap. And scene, as they say in Hollywood.
Bye-bye.
Bye.